Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sharnae Sanders, and I serve as the program coordinator for COAC Detroit. So glad that you're all able to join us for that today. Before we dive into this program, I did just want to take a moment to express my gratitude for everyone that is here, for everyone that will be watching this recording. I definitely recognize as nonprofit professionals and just other people, we wear so many hats, and there's so many things that we could be doing in this moment. So we don't take it for granted that you took the time out of your day to actually work with us and to be present for this workshop. I do invite you all to just be present today, to come with an open mind and to be open to receive whatever it is that you are looking for in this workshop. I will share right now briefly that with this workshop, we are making sure that we are going to be focusing on identifying your own core values. So what those values mean to yourself, as well as really being able to begin to draft your mission and vision and personal brand statements. And I will mention that I also shared in the email that while this information some of it can relate to your organization, this will be reflecting more on the personal. So there may be some things you can also apply for your organization, but definitely looking at this through your own eyes as we're doing more self-discovery work. So with that being said, I definitely invite you all to just be open and to listen and share. Please engage in any way that whatever works best for you. That means you can have your camera on if you feel like showing up in that capacity. If not, you're not in a situation where you're able to have your camera on, that is a-okay. Please feel free to engage via reactions or in the chat. This is a program where it's actually in partnership with YNP in Detroit, Young Nonprofit Professionals Network of Detroit, as well as COAC Detroit. To any of you who are unfamiliar, COAC Detroit, again, is a resource hub for community organizations and nonprofits, and we serve Southeast Michigan through hosting various different programs, as well as having people return to our space when we eventually open back our doors, hopefully sometime in 2022, and really just being able to bring people together to connect. COAC literally means to work together, and we do not do this work alone. We're so excited to be able to work with YNP in Detroit, and they're an organization that has a local Detroit chapter bringing, again, young nonprofit professionals, emerging leaders together to be able to put on different programming for you all to get connected to one another, get professional development experience, and to be able to also be in connection as you're continuing to change in your sector, in your journey, in your professional growth. So we're really excited that you all are able to join us. I have the privilege today of welcoming Javacia Harris Bowser to the stage. Today, Javacia will be leading this workshop, and she is a freelance journalist, a blogger, and essayist, and breast cancer survivor. She is also the founder and CEO of C. Jane Wright, a website, community, and coaching service created to give women writers the support they need to use their stories to make an impact and an income. So really gracious to have Javacia today tuning in. And the beauty of Zoom is she's not located in Michigan, so all the way from Alabama, and being able to connect and have a wonderful thought leader in this space. So with that being said, I'll bring you to the stage, Javacia, and pin you instead of myself, and you can get started whenever you're ready. And if anyone has any tech issues, please feel free to direct message me, and I'll be happy to support. But thank you. Welcome, Javacia.
All right, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And no, I'm not from Detroit. I am from Alabama. I'm sure you can hear my accent. But with the power of technology, I can be here with you today. So I am going to just jump right in because I have a lot of content and I have slides to share. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully this works the way it's supposed to. And don't judge me for all of the tabs that I have open at any given time. So I call this presentation Make a Statement because it is all about helping you make a personal statement about who you are as a person, but also your career goals, and using that statement to support you in your career goals. So as Sharnae mentioned, I am an award-winning freelance journalist. I write for a number of local, regional, and national publications, both print and digital. And I am the founder of C. Jane Wright, which is a website and community for women who write. I was an English teacher for 10 years, which means I am going to give you a lot of homework. I typically, when I do these personal brand building workshops for groups, I typically spend an entire day with a group, or at least half a day. But I only have you for an hour, and I'm very, very grateful that you are spending your lunch hour with me. But I only have you for an hour, so I'm going to have to give you a lot of things that I want you to do on your own after our time together. As Charnay mentioned, I'm also a breast cancer survivor. And because of that, breast cancer research and advocacy and awareness, these are things that I've become very involved in. And it has become a part of my personal brand. Certainly not something that I asked for, but that is something that has happened. So I want you to give yourself permission to think about yourself. So as Charnay mentioned, this presentation is primarily focused on you building your personal brand. And I know that as someone who works for a nonprofit organization, you are probably someone who never thinks about yourself. You're always just thinking about your organization, thinking about the causes that your organization stands for. But I want to invite you to give yourself permission to think about yourself. However, the concepts that I will be talking about today can be applied to your organization as well. And as I go along, I will give you some examples of how it can be applied to your organization as a whole. So personal branding is my jam. I love talking about personal branding because I think it is very, very effective, and it can really help you get where you want to be in your career and in your life, really. And I say this from personal experience. I have a bachelor's degree in journalism. I have a master's degree in journalism from UC Berkeley. And while some people may think that's impressive, most folks don't care. Most people in the journalism world do not care about my degrees. But I have had so many opportunities as a freelance journalist, not because of my degrees, but because I have been very intentional about building my personal brand. There's so many opportunities that have just landed in my lap because of personal branding. And so that's why I think it's such a big deal. And so the women that I work with in CJ and Write, I often help them with their personal brand, and they don't like it. They don't want to think about personal branding because they're writers and they just want to do the work. They don't want to think about stuff like that. But as I said, I really think that when you look at your personal brand and you are intentional about it, you can really open doors for yourself. So let's see, here we go. So what is a personal brand? A lot of times people don't like to talk about branding because they think it's something very, very complicated, but it's not. It's actually extremely simple. So your personal brand is really just your voice, your vision, and your values. It's about knowing who you are, knowing what you want, and knowing what you stand for. That's what a personal brand is. And this definitely applies to organizations as well. But when we're talking about a personal brand, this is what it is. So we're going to break each of these down today. So let's start with voice, knowing who you are. People say that a brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So your first in-class assignment, you should have received a workbook this morning. If you didn't, or you didn't get a chance to print it out, that's okay. You can do this in a notebook. But I want you to take a moment to do the things listed here. So I want you to ask yourself, what 5 adjectives do you want people to use when they're describing you and the work that you do? And this is something that you definitely can apply to your organization as well. What 5 adjectives do you want people in the community to use when they're describing your organization and the impact that it has? Now, you may have different sets of adjectives for different groups of people. So for example, for me as a writer, but a writer who's also a writing coach, I have one set of adjectives for the editors that I work with. I want them to call me resourceful and easy to work with and dependable, reliable, creative. The readers, the people who actually read my work, and also the women that I try to help with their own writing career, I have a different set of adjectives that I want them to use. I want them to think of me as relatable and authentic, inspiring, informative, empowering, right? So you may have different sets of adjectives for different groups of people. So maybe you have one set of adjectives for your boss or your supervisor, you have another set for the communities that you serve. And likewise, with an organization, you may have one set that you would use for the populations that you serve, and then another for people who could support the work you do, so volunteers or investors. So again, these are 5 adjectives you want people to use when describing you and the work that you do. And then I want you to take some time to think about your strengths and weaknesses. So what are your greatest strengths and what areas do you need to improve? And also think about your passions and interests, meaning what do you enjoy doing most at work and beyond? So not just at work, because I believe a personal brand can help you have a fulfilling life overall. So what do you enjoy doing most at work and beyond? Why do you enjoy it? And also, what do you not enjoy doing? That's important to know as well. So let's take a few minutes to work on that. I'm going to set a timer and give you a couple minutes to work on that. And if you like, you can feel free to share some of your adjectives in the chat if you would like. Okay, so let's see what we have in the chat. We've got lots of good stuff here. We have great listener, trustworthy, compassionate. We have kind, hardworking, creative, respectful, loyal, determined, innovative, creative, generational, changing. Ooh, I love that. We have passionate, collaborative, a builder, a connector, a problem solver, authentic, meticulous, innovative, assertive, resourceful, love those, insightful, authentic, radically honest, ooh, I love that, compassionate, relatable, and accessible. We have reliable, exceptional, quick-witted, humility, and authenticity. Oh, here's some more, professional, cultured, community-oriented, meticulous, and willing. These are great. I love these. So so you have those adjectives and you thought about your strengths and weaknesses. You thought about your passions and interests. So now here comes your homework. Your homework is to do something about that. So take that information and actually do something with it. So when we're thinking about your strengths and passions, ask yourself, how could I better display my strengths and passions at work? So for example, and I'm going to use a writing example because I'm a writer, but let's say you are a really good writer and you really love writing, but your job at your organization doesn't have anything to do with writing, but it's something that you love to do and you're very good at it. So maybe your organization has a website, a blog, an e-newsletter that they put out. And is there a way that you can step up and start contributing to that? Doing things like that is a part of building your personal brand, because once you do that, then you become known as someone who's a good writer, someone who can be turned to when they need someone to do this type of work. And so therefore, you're getting to do more of the things you actually want to do. How can you use your skills to better serve your community at large? So maybe your organization primarily works with adults, but you really want to work with kids too. But you love your job, so you don't want to leave your job, but you really want to work with kids. So is there a way that you can work with kids in your community? Maybe volunteering at a youth center or at a school or something like that, or an empowerment program for kids. Now, what areas do you need to improve in? And what are you going to do about it? Again, we don't want to just make these lists during this session and then throw this notebook over in a corner, right? We want to actually do something about it. So let's say you really struggle with public speaking and you know that it would catapult your career if you were better at it. And you want to get better at it because it's something that you're really interested in, but you just get so nervous when you're in front of a crowd or even on a Zoom call. So maybe you could join your local Toastmasters organization, and that way you would start to work on those skills. And again, once it becomes known that you're doing this, then you become that person that's turned to for these public speaking opportunities. And thanks to Toastmasters, you'll actually be better at it. Also, I wanted you to make that list of things you don't like doing. And here's why. So these things that I just mentioned, doing something about the areas you need to improve in, stepping up and doing different things at work, or doing community service, that's going to add more to your plate, right? And I don't want anybody burnt out. Been there, done that, not fun. I don't want you burnt out. So you need to eliminate some things to make room for the things that you really want to do. So look at that list of things that you don't like doing and ask yourself, can I eliminate or delegate any of these things? Now, some things, obviously, we just always have to do, but there are probably things on that list that you can eliminate or delegate. And I'm not just talking about your activities at work. I'm talking about your life outside of work too. So again, look at that list of things that you don't like doing at work and beyond, and see what can you eliminate or delegate. I think that a lot of this applies to organizations as well. So again, like I said, organizations need to know those 5 adjectives. In fact, you could even, when you send out surveys to stakeholders and the populations that you serve, that could be a question on that survey. What 5 adjectives would you use to describe our organization and the work that we do? And see if the responses that you get back line up with what you said in that initial question. If it does, then you're on the right track. If it doesn't, then you got some work to do. You need to figure out the changes that you need to make. And when we talk about strengths and passions for an organization, you need to think about the people that work for your organization. What are their strengths and passions and interests, and how can you better highlight those and also better use those to strengthen your organization? What areas do you need to improve in? Maybe there's a certain population that you should be serving, but you aren't really reaching them. Why is that? Figure that out. Do some soul searching for your organization and figure that out. And also, are there things you need to eliminate? Sometimes organizations are doing too much. You are spreading yourself too thin, and therefore that is diluting your impact. So are there some things that you need to cut out so that you can do other things better. So again, I've put this together with an individual in mind, but it can absolutely be applied to an organization as well. So that was the voice. A voice is, again, all about who are you, knowing who you are. Now we're going to talk about vision. Now, vision can be a little tricky when you're talking about personal vision, because most of the time when we think about a vision, we're thinking about a vision for an organization. So what's the difference? You may be wondering, what's the difference between a vision and a mission for an organization as opposed to a personal vision and mission? So for an organization, and you know this because you work for organizations, but an organization, as you know, the vision is the change you want to see in the world as a result of your work. So one organization based here in Birmingham that I do a lot of work with is called the Women's Fund of Greater Birmingham. And their vision is, we envision a society where power and possibility are not limited by gender. So that's their vision. And then your mission is the work that you do in order to make that vision a reality. So their mission is, the Women's Fund of Greater Birmingham accelerates economic opportunity for women and their families through philanthropy, research, and advocacy. So they have those three pillars. And so when I was talking about, are you doing too much? When you're thinking about, those of you who are here because you want to take some of this stuff back for your organization, if you are in a space where you're trying to sort of revamp or rethink your mission, consider, do you need to pare down? And could you sum up the work that you do in just 3 categories? That paring down is important because it's going to be easier for you to convey exactly what you do once you pare down, and you're going to be more effective once you are focusing on certain things. So let's see, what do we have in the chat? Focus on the mission and stick to the organization's strength. Team up with collaborators, partners to work outside of your wheelhouse. Yes, it's good. But what does this mean for an individual, right? So what is a personal vision? What's a personal mission? For me, I define my personal mission, or my personal vision, let's start with that. My personal vision as my vision for my life. Where do I see myself in 5 years? And so I want you to think about that for yourself now. I want you thinking about where you see yourself in 5 years. But before we get there, we're going to just jot down some goals and do another in-class assignment. I want you to take 3 minutes, we may do 2 minutes, I think 2 minutes is probably enough, to jot down some goals. And as you're doing this, I don't want you just thinking about career goals. I want you thinking about all areas of life. So Zig Ziglar, probably heard of him. He is an American businessman, author, motivational speaker. And he designed this thing that he called the Wheel of Life. And it's basically all the different areas of life. So what I want you to do now, I'm going to set the timer as I kind of keep talking through this. I want you to just jot down some goals in all of these different areas of life. So mental, that could be mental health, but also that could be intellectual pursuits. So it could be something as simple as reading goals, like maybe you have a goal of, I want to read every book I own, or it could be something more intense, like maybe you want to go back to school to study something in particular. Financial, spiritual, family, career, those are all self-explanatory. Personal, this could be your community service. This could also be fun stuff, your hobbies, travel, things like that. And then physical, this can be your health, your physical health, but it also can be your physical environment. So that could be your home, your clothes, your car, things like that. So again, let's take a moment and just jot down some goals. Okay, so hopefully you have some goals jotted down. Now, your homework for the vision part of this is to edit those goals to make sure that they are actually your goals. And what I mean by that is oftentimes we will set out to do things just because society told us these are the things that we should do. Want to go to school, get a job, get married, have 2 kids, get a dog, buy a house, blah, 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 right? You do those things, you check them off because someone told you those are the things you were supposed to do. But do you really want to do that? Or maybe you want to do that and maybe you want to do something else too. So you need a litmus test, something to help you know that these goals are really your goals. And this is where a vision statement comes into play. So I'm going to give you a couple of different ways that you can go about working on this vision statement. And again, this is part of your homework assignment. So one way that you can do this is give yourself 30 minutes. So just set a timer for 30 minutes and give yourself 30 minutes to write to this prompt. It is 2026, that's 5 years from now. And I'm so proud of the life I have created. And so then you just start to describe your life, every area of your life, work, family, relationships, health, hobbies, travel, environment, spirituality, community service, all of this stuff. You describe all of this as if it already exists. So that becomes your vision statement because that is your vision for your life. If it's a little overwhelming to think about your whole life, I remember the first time I did this exercise, it was overwhelming for me. So what I did is I described my ideal day. So maybe you can do that if that's overwhelming for you. Another option is to just write your future bio. So let's say you do Toastmasters, you get really good at public speaking, and so now you're giving a presentation and someone has to introduce you. What do you want them saying about you? So these are 3 different ways that you can approach this. But the goal here is what you end up with is your personal vision statement. And then you go back and you look at those set of goals that you wrote down and you eliminate anything on that list that's not going to get you closer to this future that you have described. Because if it's on that list, but it's not going to get you closer to this future you described, it's not really your goal. It's something that you wrote down because you just felt like, this is what I should do. So this is a great litmus test for you when it comes to building that personal vision statement. Now we're going to talk about values. So I have a long list here of different values. What I want you to do is take a moment and write down, and I'd love for you to share this in the chat as well, your top 5 values. And if you are here hoping to glean something for your organization, you can think about your organization's top 5 values. So you can use this list for inspiration, but don't feel like you have to pick something on this list. So what are your top 5 values, or what are your organization's top 5 values? Oh, Izzy, I said litmus test, and that's not a formal thing. That was me just using that colloquialism. So, but let's talk about values. So look at, again, you can use this for inspiration, but you don't have to feel like you have to just pick things on here. Your top 5 values or your organization's top 5 values. So let's just do a minute for that. And like I said, I'd love for you to share those in the chat. Okay, let's see. What do we have in the chat? We have enrichment, we have faith, loyalty, freedom, growth, power. We have faith, family, peace, freedom, growth. Faith, a lot of faith. Faith, community, creativity, mindfulness, impact, passion, stability, balance, freedom, integrity, truth, love, curiosity, innovation, great work ethic, which includes time to rest. Yes, that is so important. Integrity, fantastic sense of humor, compassion, realistic optimism. I love that. My personal values, community driven, independence, prosperity for Black folks, integrity. Love it. Love it. Community, experience, security, love, empathy, justice, creativity, curiosity, courage, comfort, difference, love, creativity, rest, fun. I love it. I love that fun and rest were mentioned. I love that because those should be values. Because so often, especially people who do the kind of work that you do, you're doing such selfless work that you forget to take care of yourself a lot. And so I love that rest and fun are some of your values. So, so that's a good way to start with that. Now, let's kind of dig deeper with this. Let's think about worldview. So, what's a worldview? There's a writer I follow named Jeff Goins who says you can figure out your worldview simply by completing this sentence. I believe every blank should blank. So, I want you to take some time to think through that. If you already know it, you can throw it in the chat. But if not, add that to your homework to think through that. How would you fill out those blanks? Or if you can think about this for your organization as well. Your organization could be, we believe every blank should blank, right? What would those blanks be? Why does this matter? So for me, mine would be, I believe every woman should share her story. So why do you believe this? So you need to ask yourself this once you fill out your worldview statement. Ask yourself, why do I believe this? For your organization, why do we believe this? So I believe every woman should share her story because I think in doing so, she empowers herself and she empowers the people who hear or read her story. What are you doing about it? Almost everything that I do is related to this worldview. And your organization, everything your organization does should be rooted in that worldview. And you as an individual, the work that you do, both at work and any other community service that you may do, and perhaps even your hobbies can be related to this worldview. And you want to showcase this on social media. That's what we're going to talk about next. We're going to talk about social media because this is the age we're living in. Social media is not going anywhere, at least not in any of our lifetimes. So we need to figure out how we can best use it, how we can use social media to showcase our values, our vision, our voice, all these things that we've been talking about. Both for an individual and for an organization, we need to use social media to showcase these things because that leads to opportunities. On the individual level, I can share with you my own experience. My belief that women should share their stories, that is all over the content that I share on social media. And as a result of that, opportunities have landed in my lap. So Reckon South, which is a digital publication that is focused on showing the progressive movements of the South, they decided back in 2019 that they wanted to do something to elevate the voices of women. So they started a column and they wanted to feature an essay by a woman with ties to the South every week. And they needed someone to be in charge of finding writers for that column and editing that column, working with those writers. And they came directly to me because of the personal brand that I had built. My personal brand made it very clear that I was all about elevating the voices of women. And so you need to do the same. You need to think about, so once you get clear on all these things that we're talking about today, then you need to focus on, okay, how can I showcase that? You can showcase that at work by volunteering to do certain things, but then you can showcase that outside of work through social media. And again, we're going to talk more about that in a second. Let's see, what do we have in the chat? I believe every thought should be given breath and held accountable. Ooh. I believe every child should have the opportunity, support, and resources to achieve their dreams. I love that. Yes, so this is your worldview or your organization's worldview, or maybe they're one and the same, right? Maybe you work for that organization because you share the same worldview. And so let's talk about why this is important for an organization. So I just shared how, as an individual, making your worldview known can help you get opportunities, but it really helps as an organization too. And your worldview is sort of your opportunity to niche down as an organization. So I'll use breast cancer as an example. So there are tons of breast cancer organizations out there, right? And so when you are trying to decide which one you're going to support, you need to know more than it's a breast cancer organization. You need to know what their focus is, what their niche is, what their worldview is. So maybe one organization is really focused on research. Maybe another is really focused on making sure that every woman has a mammogram. Maybe another organization is focused on advocacy work, particularly for young women or women of color. So when you get clear on that niche, that focus, and then you convey it, because that's usually the issue. Most of the time, organizations know what their focus is, but they don't do a very good job of letting other people know. So when you convey it, you attract the volunteers that you need to attract. You attract the investors that you need to attract. And of course, you also can then serve the people that you're trying to serve. The organization I mentioned earlier, the Women's Fund of Greater Birmingham, I've been volunteering for that organization for nearly a decade because their mission of elevating women aligns with my mission of elevating women. So you attract the volunteers that you need when you're really clear on that worldview. So let's talk some more about social media. So as I said, social media is going to be here. And, I don't see it going anywhere in our lifetime. So we need to make use of it. So here are my sort of general tips. Social media this is a bit complicated and it's very individualized. So I'm just going to give you some general tips, and then I'm going to leave lots of time for Q&A so that you all can ask me specific questions about social media, but also about anything else that we talked about today. So you've got to be intentional about social media. Whether we're talking about you as an individual or talking about your organization, you have to be intentional. You've got to take it seriously. And that means planning out what you're going to post, when you're going to post it, and also being very mindful of why you're posting this. For individuals, I recommend focusing on one platform at a time. This doesn't mean you can't have an account everywhere. You can have an account everywhere. But as far as trying to grow and showcase that personal brand that we've been talking about, I highly recommend you focus on one platform at a time. And then once you've kind of gotten in a groove with that one, you can move on to another one. But trying to be everywhere all the time, that's just impossible. And it's too stressful. So don't try to do that. Now, for organizations, you may have the capacity to be everywhere almost all the time because you probably have someone in your organization who is their job to do social media, right? So it'll be a little bit different for you. But for an individual, it's best to just focus on one platform at a time. So how do you pick the platform? You pick the platform that will most likely help you with whatever your goal is. And also the platform that you actually like. Because if you're trying to be active on a platform that you hate, it's going to show. So if you don't like Instagram or you don't like Twitter, then don't worry about it. If you are a strictly business kind of person, then you just stick to LinkedIn. But if you do like Instagram or you do like Twitter, then you focus on that. So again, focus on one platform at a time. Plan out your content in advance and plan out, again, what you're going to post, when you're going to post it, why you're going to post it. So why are you posting? One, you want to offer value. And this goes for individuals and organizations. You want to make sure that you are offering information or maybe even just inspiration that's related to whatever that worldview of yours is. You also want to use social media to engage. As an individual, you want to use this as a way to network. And you want to make sure that you're networking both up and across. So yes, you want to network with the person that can help you get a promotion or the person who can help you find your next job. But you also want to use it to network with your peers as well, because that's equally important. And then for organizations, you want to use social media to reach out to the people that you're trying to serve. If it's a community that would be active on social media, you want to use it to reach out to possible volunteers and investors as well. And so with that in mind, that means, and this goes for individuals too, sometimes there are different groups of people that you're trying to communicate with. So just like when we were talking about those adjectives at the beginning, and I said you may have different sets of adjectives for different groups, same with social media. You're gonna probably have different groups that you're trying to communicate with. And so you may have different kinds of content for those different groups. So that's why you have to be intentional. So you have to ask yourself, okay, what am I doing this week to communicate with stakeholders? What am I doing this week to communicate with possible volunteers? What am I doing this week to communicate with possible investors on an individual level? What am I doing this week to connect with my peers? What am I doing this week to connect with people who could give me a promotion? So again, you've got to be mindful of what are you doing each week to communicate with these different groups of people. And so as you're trying to put together your content plan, here are some things you want to think about. Now, if for organizations, like I said, you probably have someone who this is their job. So maybe you just want to, send them this slide and kind of ask them, how can they apply this to the content for your organization? For individuals, again, you want to plan your content. So your homework is to plan your content for October if you haven't done that already. If you have, that's great. If you haven't, you still have a week. So plan your social media content for October. And as you're planning that content, you want to consider these questions. Would someone use any of my 5 adjectives to describe this content? So going back to those adjectives that we talked about earlier. So, and another thing you need to consider is any of this content the opposite of those adjectives? If so, that content needs to go, right? So if inspiring is one of your adjectives, but you have this super depressing content, then that needs to go. Now, that's not to say you can't share content that's talking about the realities of the world. You absolutely should do that. But you need to also include some sort of call to action, right? So that people have some sort of hope, like, yes, this horrible thing is happening, but here's something I can do about it, right? So ask yourself, does this content line up with those 5 adjectives? Does this content highlight my passions, my strengths, and my interests? The things that you like doing, that you want to do more of, you need to let people know you're doing it. I share the articles that I write on social media all the time. And the result of that is editors DM me and say, hey, can you write for my publication? So you want to showcase the things that you enjoy doing. Also, share your goals. Don't be afraid to share your goals on social media. Now, if you're trying to quit your job, you might not want to say that, but share your goals. Organizations, you need to share your organization's goals because maybe there are people out there, whether it's volunteers or investors, that can help you achieve them. And again, you want to use social media to connect with others. You want to use social media to help others. And you can do this by being informative. You can also do this by being inspiring. So again, you want to use social media to convey those things that we just talked about, right? Your vision, your voice, and your values. Because when you do that, it is going to open up opportunities for you to do more of the things that you actually want to do. So, too long, didn't read. All right, here's a quick summary, and then we'll have 10 minutes for Q&A, which is great. So again, a personal brand is about voice, vision, and values. Know who you are, know what you want, know what you stand for, and convey that both at work and outside of work. And convey that to the people who need to know. Use your vision statement, which you're going to do as part of your homework, to make sure that your goals are actually your goals. And do more of the things that will help you achieve these goals and less of the things that won't. Be intentional with social media. Plan and curate your content carefully so that it helps you reach your goals. So, there is my contact info. There's my email address if you want to email me some questions later. My website is cjanewrightbham.com, and you can find me on Instagram and Twitter, although I'm hardly ever on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram mostly at Javacia Wright. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can look at you. So if you have, if you have questions, drop them in the chat. Let's see, what is in the chat here? Let's see, such a validating, liberating statement. If you don't like it, don't use it. Yes, if you don't like it, don't use it. Because it's going to show. If you are on a social media platform that you hate being on, it's going to show. And it's not going to be effective. So yeah, let that pressure go. Oh, sorry. The slide with my contact info. Let me bring that back up. There we go. So Javacia at cjanewrightbham.com and cjanewrightbham.com. And C. Jane Wright is based in Birmingham. It started in Birmingham, but I have members all over the country now. Charnay is a member, for example. So if you are interested in, if you do like writing and you're interested in a writing community, don't feel like you can't be a part of our community because you are in Birmingham. We are for everyone. We even have some members outside of the country. So that's exciting. All right. So what questions do we have? We have 10 minutes for questions. This is a very general overview. I had to kind of fly through things. As I said, when I do personal brand building workshops, I usually spend a day or half a day with a group. So this was kind of an overview. So if you have very specific and individual questions, this is the time to get them answered. If your question is too long to type, you can just unmute yourself and ask.
Hi, Javacia. Thank you so much for your time. Like this writing or personal branding workshop was so useful. I have like a lot of notes outside of the ones that you gave us. So yeah, I just want to first say that. And my question to you is, as you were saying, like, a lot of your interactions, engagement have to be on social media. Could you speak to like the pressure, the presentation you have to have like a very enlightening and lively social media, like as a Black woman, when like there's a lot of other things going on in the world? Or like, do you feel yourself like filtering out like your raw emotions? I haven't seen your Instagram yet, but I just want to know if you could speak to that. Or, I think like last summer was like a lot of with the pandemic and a lot of the social movement uprisings going on, like a lot of people went to social media to kind of like shake things up in terms of like their usual brand versus like things that they obviously have cared for a long time, but felt comfortable incorporating it into a social media purview.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that last year it sort of opened up the door for people to feel as if they can be more authentic and that you don't have to just stick to the things that will make people feel warm and fuzzy inside, right? So I think that it was one of the good things that happened last summer. So I would encourage you to be authentic, and having a brand that is curated doesn't mean that it's fake. And I think a lot of people feel like it's kind of all or nothing. They think they have to just like let it all hang out, or they have to be completely fake. And that's not what having a curated brand is. It's really about just being thoughtful. So you kind of ask yourself, like, okay, I want to share this. Why do I want to share it? And giving yourself time to process things as well. Because I have learned just from personal experience that when I just jump on something and just share something as a knee-jerk reaction, because sometimes everyone else is talking about something, and so you feel like, oh, I need to talk about this too. That content, that is not really going to be authentic, honestly. So you need to kind of sit and process and ask yourself, okay, what do I actually think and feel about this topic? And how do I want to join this conversation? So it's not about not sharing the things that are important to you. It's about being thoughtful when you share them and asking yourself, again, how do I want to join this conversation? So I hope that is helpful.
Yes, it was perfect. Thank you.
And
All right.
Javacia, would you mind sharing your slides again? The slide right before your contact page.
Okay. Yes. Sorry. Let me. I was so eager to chat with y'all. Okay, so there we go. There is the, and while you all are copying that down, I think there was another question in the chat. What do you recommend for folks who are having trouble identifying their vision, mission, values? If you find yourself saying, I don't know, what are your next steps? You need to do some soul searching. And I think that really you need to get in touch with what you like and what you are passionate about. So what do you like to do? What do you not like to do? What sort of things make you angry, right? That'll kind of help you with that mission, those values, because what things are making you angry? Why are they making you angry? Another thing that can really help is going back to what you liked to do when you were a child. A lot of times those things that we love to do as a child, that's where our true passion lies. But then somewhere along the way, a family member or even a teacher discouraged you from doing that thing that you love to do. And so you stop doing it. So I would take some time to, again, go back to what you like doing as a child, but also just ask yourself, what do I like doing now? What do I not like doing? What makes me angry? What makes me happy? Really, it takes some soul searching. I'm a big proponent of journaling, obviously, because I'm a writer. But I think maybe just taking some time to think about those things, asking yourself, when am I happiest? When do I feel most like myself? Just taking some time to figure those things out. So I hope that was helpful. If you're using social media, how do you handle trolls? Oh, yes. Black women are especially harassed online. What do we need to do to stay them off? So, you know, the phrase, are we good on this slide here? Because, yeah, it's no, maybe.
Yep, should be good.
Okay. Okay. So don't feed the trolls. You've heard that phrase, I'm sure. And so that is there's nothing we can really do to make trolls disappear, but we can starve them. And so don't feed the trolls. So when someone comes at you with something and they're being a troll, it's not someone who's actually trying to just engage in a conversation. Maybe someone has a difference of opinion and they want to have a discussion. That's not what this is. This is just a troll. You don't engage them. Something else that really helps, your community can really help with that. So the people who follow your content and they are down for the stuff that you're down for, they will a lot of times hop on that troll before you even see what they have posted. And so you don't have to do anything. You just sit back and just watch the troll get eaten alive by your followers. So that's why it's so important to really cultivate community on social media, because a lot of times they can just take care of those trolls for you. So don't feed the trolls and cultivate your community so your trolls or your community will scare away the trolls. That would be my advice for that. One thing I do want to add, and you all mentioned rest earlier. Several people mentioned that as a value. And we should apply that to social media too, because social media can be overwhelming. And so it is perfectly okay for you to take a break. You're not going to destroy your personal brand if you take a break from social media. So I just wanted to add that because I think that's really important to say. Any other questions? I hope this was useful. I hope I gave you a lot of homework and I hope you will do the homework. And as you are working on it, feel free to email me if questions come up as you are working on these action steps that I gave you. Let's see, here's something from Janet. She says, one helpful prompt a mentor shared with me recently is to think about, what do you find yourself doing all the time, even if you're not getting paid for it? I find that this is more helpful than trying to figure out a passion. Yeah, because that is your passion, right? You just don't call it that because you just do it naturally, right? So yeah, what are some things that you love doing? You do them all the time, even if you aren't getting paid for it. And let's see, Janet said, so I find myself pondering all the time about human motivations and behavior. So that leads me to pursuits such as team building, relationship building, organizational development, etc. Yes, that is a perfect example. All right.
All right, well, thank you so much. My name is Abby Adair. I am the YNPN Detroit Board Co-Chair. So just wanted to come on and thank everyone for your time today, for spending this hour with us and going through your mission, vision, and values. YNPN Detroit, we are accepting new board members on a rolling basis. So if you're interested at all, please email us. I'm going to pop our email in the chat box. We'd love to have you. And if you can also email if you have questions about that. And then lastly, please fill out our workshop survey. Let us know what you liked, what you didn't like. And we have another workshop coming up with COACT in November. The date is to be decided, but it is called Crafting Your Career in the Social Sector. So I really think that's a good part two to what we've done today. So please join us for that. And look out on COACT or YNPN's website and social media to find when we announce the date for that. Hope to see you there. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
I'm just going to stop the recording.